Welcome to the last video of Chapter 3. In today's video, we're going to cover two sections. We're going to cover slope and writing and graphing equations of lines. I'm going to tell you right off the bat that this is going to be a long video, but it's all review. So there's four objectives that we're going to calculate. We're going to calculate the slope of a line. We're going to determine if two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. We're going to write the equation of a line, and we're going to graph the equation of a line. These two sections are extremely important. You covered them in Algebra 1, you're covering them this year, and you're going to cover them again next year, junior year, during Advanced Algebra, and then you're going to cover them again during College Algebra, senior year. So these concepts are really important. So let's just jump right in with slope. The basis of everything that we're doing in this section is slope. So slope is rise divided by run, and in general, it's the measure of the steepness of a line. It's a measure of the steepness of a line. So the formula for slope goes m equals, m stands for slope, I don't know why it's s, it's always m. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And again, these ideas are in this box here. So looking at the figure to the right, we need to identify which slope is positive, negative, zero, and undefined. So there's four lines. Before we start, I'm going to show you this face that I learned that helps remind me of slope, and if you don't like it, that's fine, but I like it. The way I think of it, positive slope is always increasing, negative slope is always decreasing, which you probably knew. A vertical slope is undefined, and a horizontal slope is zero. So based on our figure, the slope that is positive is line M. It's rising. The slope that's negative is line K. It's falling. The slope that is zero is the horizontal, so that's J. And the slope that is undefined, that's the vertical, that's L. So positive and negative you probably know, but the zero and undefined are more difficult. In order to remember zero and undefined, I remember the face. So undefined is the nose and zero is the mouth. Okay, besides identifying types of slope, you're going to have to be able to calculate a slope. So let's try example 2. Starting out with the formula, slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my 2 points are 4, 8 and 2, 3. So my first point is my x1, y1, and my second point is my x2, y2. So using my slope formula, y2 is 3, y1 is 8, x2 is 2, x1 is 4. So 3 minus 8 is negative 5, 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Those negatives cancel, so it becomes 5 over 2. Now looking at my figure, does that make sense? 5 over 2 is positive. So yes, the slope of my line is positive, it's rising. In order to see slope from a graph, it's rise over run. So if I start at my original 2, 3, I go up or I rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I run 1, 2. So that also checks out with my slope. Okay, flip the page, please. Okay, example 3, I would like you to do on your own, please. So right now, pause the video and calculate the slope of the line through the given points. Good luck. Okay, so let's see how we did. You should have done y2 minus y1, so negative 11 subtract negative 5 over 12 minus 4. Negative 11 subtract negative 5, it's like adding a positive. So that's going to be negative 6 over 8. Dividing both numerator and denominator by 2, it becomes negative 3 over 4. Now, you may have written yours backwards, so you may have done negative 5 minus negative 11 over 4 minus 12, which should have given you the same answer. Either way, you should have gotten a slope of negative 3 over 4. Okay, so that was calculating slope. And I told you that slope is a measure of steepness. So looking at example 5, I know it should be 4, so I apologize that I went out of order. It says, consider the figure on the previous page. Which line is the steepest? So you should be able to tell that line L is the steepest, and that's because it's vertical. Now, if you don't have a picture, but instead you have two lines with slopes of -7 and 5, which one is steeper? The larger number, disregarding sign, is always steeper. So the slope of -7 is steeper. Doesn't matter that it's negative. The reason is because let's think about slope. So a slope of -7 means I'm rising 7 and then taking one step over. So if I'm starting at this point, I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then go over 1. If I have a slope of 5, I'm rising 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going over 1. So steeper means I'm going to rise faster. So that's the slope of -7. Or you could see something like example 6, where it says line Q passes through points 0, 0, and -4, 5. Line T passes through 0, 0, and 10, 7. Which line is steeper? In order to determine which line is steeper, we're not going to graph them, we're going to calculate slopes. So right now, pause the video, calculate the slope of line Q and the slope of line T. Good luck. Okay, let's see how we did. So for the slope of line Q, I have 5 minus 0 over -4 minus 0, which is 5 over -4. For line T, you should have shown the work, and it ends up being 7 over 10. Now the question is, which line is steeper? In the previous problem, I told you that the line that is steeper is the one that has the larger value of the slope, disregarding sign. So we know that 5 over 4 is greater than 1, so this is going to be greater than 1. 7 over 10 is less than 1, again ignoring sign. Q has the larger slope, so Q is going to be steeper. Again, it's always the slope that has a larger value. Okay, so that was the first objective, calculating slope. We are now going to use slope with special lines. So what I mean by that is parallel perpendicular lines. Hopefully you remember from last year that parallel lines have the same slope. So if I have a slope equal to 4 and another slope equal to 4, then the lines are parallel. Perpendicular lines, on the other hand, have opposite reciprocal slopes. So the slope of 2, opposite means the opposite sign, so it's going to be negative, and then the reciprocal, so it would be -1/2. If I have -5/3, that's going to be perpendicular to positive 3 over 5. One special note that you need to know is that an undefined slope is perpendicular to a slope of 0. So an undefined slope, that's a vertical line. That's going to be perpendicular to a slope of 0, which is a horizontal line. So those two, it's difficult to see the opposite reciprocal part, but undefined and 0 slope are going to be perpendicular. Okay, so let's keep going with this idea of parallel and perpendicular and move on to the next example. So example 7 says line A passes through -1, 3, and 4, 1. Line B passes through -2, -1, and 3, -3. Are the two lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So let's start with our slope. For A, I'm going to have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 1 minus 3 is -2. 4 subtract -5, that's like adding, is -2 over 5. Again, if you write in the reverse order, so if you do 3 minus 1 and 3 minus 1 and -1 minus 4, that's fine. Just be consistent. So this is the first point. Okay, line B now. I'm going to do -1 subtract -3. Okay, because negative 1 came first in the numerator, negative 2 has to come first in the denominator. Subtract 3. This is like adding a positive, so that's going to be 2 over, adding a negative, 2 over negative 5. Okay, now I notice I have same slope. This means that A is parallel to B. So again, this should be a review of something that you did last year. Okay, let's keep going. So flip the page, please. Okay, so that was everything with slope. Now we're going to move on to writing the equations of lines, which is going to use slope. There's 3 different forms in order to write the equation of a line. The one that most people remember is slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, and b is the y-intercept. Hence why it's called slope-intercept form. This is a form that most students learn, but it's not very useful. The only time that you use it is when you have the slope and the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is going to be 0, some other number. It's the only time that you use slope-intercept form. The form that is way more useful is point-slope form. So this is the one that goes y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So m is still the slope. x1, y1 is some point on the line. Okay. There are 2 cases when you can use point-slope form. One is when you have the slope and a point, hence point-slope form. Or you can use it when you have 2 points. In the case of having 2 points, you would use the 2 points to find the slope. The last form is standard form. Standard form goes ax plus by equals c. You only use this when you're told to. If I tell you to use standard form, use standard form. Otherwise, it's pretty useless. You really are only going to see standard form when you're graphing. So right now, we're going to write some equations of lines, and then we're going to graph some. So looking at example 1, it says write the equation of the line through the point 5, 4, and with a slope of 3. So considering only the first 2 forms for writing an equation of a line, because standard form is not that helpful, I don't have the y-intercept, so I'm going to use point-slope form. So it's going to be the y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. Okay, so in this case, our x1 is 5, our y1 is 4, so I get y minus 4 equals my slope of 3, and then x minus 5. Now I know last year your teacher asked you to switch this into slope-intercept form. I do not want you to. This is your final answer. Leave your answer like that. That's it. Okay, looking at example 2. It says write the equation of the line perpendicular to the given line and passing through the point -1, 1. Okay, I don't have the y-intercept. I have some point, so I'm going to use point-slope form. So first thing, I have a point, and then I have the equation of the line. Now it says I want the line perpendicular to the given equation. Perpendicular lines, hopefully you remember, have opposite reciprocal slopes. So the slope of the given line is 7 over 3, so the slope of the perpendicular line is going to be opposite, so negative, reciprocal, -3 over 7. And now I'm ready to write my equation using the given point, the -1, 1. So I'm going to have y minus y1, so y minus 1 equals my slope, -3 over 7, times x minus x1, which is -1. Now subtracting a -1 doesn't look very nice, so this becomes adding. So my final equation is y minus 1 equals -3 over 7, x plus 1. And that's my equation. Again, don't switch it to slope-intercept form, just leave the equation as is. Okay, we still got a few more. So, example number 3, write the equation of the line that passes through -2, 5, and 1, 2. In this case, I have 2 points, so I'm going to use point-slope form. First thing that I have to do is find the slope. So we are going to start with that. So we have y2 minus y1, so 5 minus 2. Because 5 came first, I need negative 2 to come first in the denominator. Okay, so 5 minus 2 is 3. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. So this simplifies to negative 1. Now, to use point-slope form, I need 1 point. In this case, I was given 2. I just pick whichever one I want to use. So using the first point, let's say, I get y minus 5 equals negative 1, x minus negative 2, which becomes x plus 2. That's if I use the first equation, or the first point, that is. Now if I use the second point, 1 comma 2, I get y minus 2 equals, my slope is still negative 1, and I get x minus 1. Both of these are correct answers. Although they look different, there are two equations for the same line. Okay, let's move down. Examples 4 and 5 you should be able to do on your own. So right now, pause the video and try these two on your own, please. Good luck. Okay, let's see how we did with 4. Now it tells you this time we want a line that's parallel. Parallel means same slope. In the equation we have, the slope is 2, so our parallel line is also going to have a slope of 2. Using slope-intercept form, I get y minus 1 equals 2x plus 1, because x minus negative 1. So that should have been your answer. For problem 5, the first thing that you should have done is found the slope, which ends up being 4 over 3. Then you write your equation in point-slope form using either point. If you chose to use the first point, you should have gotten y minus 3 equals 4/3 x plus 1. If you chose to use the second point, you would have gotten y minus 7 equals 4/3 x minus 2. Either one is acceptable. If you did not get either of those answers, you made a mistake and you need to go back and find it. Please make sure you pause the video right now, find your mistake and fix it before moving on. We are almost done. We only have one more page left. This is a graphing page, so stick with me through one more page. Flip, please. Okay, so our last page is all graphing. So, looking at the first one, this is slope-intercept form, because I have y and x on different sides, no parentheses. So, this negative 1 is going to be my y-intercept. 2 is going to be my slope. Now remember that the y-axis is the vertical axis. So if I have a y-intercept of negative 1, that means go down 1. A lot of students are tempted to go left 1. You want to go down. Now a slope of positive 2 means I'm going to go up 2 and over 1. So up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. Okay, I always want at least 3 points. 3 or 4 points is ideal so that you get a good accurate line. And you should be using a straight edge. I just like to do a mental check now. My slope is positive 2. Does this line have a positive slope? The answer is yes, because it's rising. So that's just a little bit of a mental check. So that one you should remember. Now graphing something like number 7 is more difficult. This is in point-slope form. So we know that our slope is negative 2/3. And then we get a point. So looking at my x value, you always want to take the opposite sign. Remember that we have y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So if I have x plus 1, that's really x subtract negative 1. So the x part is negative 1. If I have y minus 1, it means I'm subtracting 1. So my y is 1. So you just have to remember, for point-slope form, you want to flip the signs for both x and y. So let's start by graphing that point, negative 1, 1. I now have a slope of 2/3, so I go up 2. This time I'm going to go left 3. Some of you have a tendency to memorize. If it's negative, I go down. If it's positive, I go up. Just look at your picture and think if it's positive or negative. So I have negative slope, so I want my line to be falling. So this is number 7. Okay. Number 8 now is in standard form. So standard form, the way I graph is by creating an XY chart. So what you're going to do is you're going to solve for the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Okay, so if we plug in a 0 for x, we get 2 times 0 minus 3y equals 6. That goes away. So if negative 3y equals 6, we get y equals negative 2. Okay, so this is 1 point, 0, negative 2. So let me graph that. Okay, now plug in a 0 for y. So I get 2x minus 3 times 0 equals 6. 2x equals 6, that means x equals 3. Okay, so this is my other point, 3 comma 0. So there's my x-intercept in blue, my y-intercept in red. Now if I connect them, that's my line. It is not necessary to solve for y. A lot of you don't like standard form and you want to solve for y. Don't. Just solve for the 2 intercepts. Okay, we're almost done. We got 3 more graphs to go. Okay, x equals 6. X equals 6 is either a vertical or a horizontal line. Here's how I remember. Start at the origin. Now go to where x is 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, if I move up and down, is x still 6? Well, yeah, x is still 6 here. It's still 6 here. It's still 6 here. It's still 6 here. All of these points are where x is 6. So you should be able to tell that x equals 6 is this vertical line. All of these points are where x is 6. Y is changing, yes, but we don't care about y. We only care about x. So y equals would be a horizontal line. Okay. Now, 10 and 11 are for you to do. So 10 is in point slope form, so you're going to need the slope and you're going to need a point. Remember to flip the signs for your point. 11, on the other hand, is kind of in standard form. So you're going to do an XY chart, put a 0 in for x and a 0 in for y. When you come to class tomorrow, I'm going to be making sure you have all 4 pages of notes done and these last 2 problems. If you don't have any idea, that's okay. Try your best. If you have any questions, please make sure you ask them in class tomorrow. See you tomorrow.